victims. Even though serial killers enjoy causing pain and chaos, they're usually very careful to make sure their dark deeds are kept under wraps. Secrecy is an important part of not getting caught. So what happens when the murderer can't help but keep souvenirs of the lives they've taken? Let's take a look at some of the most twisted killers who documented their crimes. Vester Lee Flanagan and the Deadly Broadcast. Vester Lee Flanagan was better known as Bryce Williams, a reporter at Roanoke, Virginia television station WBDJ.
We're going to go inside and check out the anchoring.
He mainly covered human interest stories, but only worked at the station for less than a year before being fired. Flanagan claimed his dismissal was motivated and that he was being harassed, but these accusations were thrown out. Flanagan grew steadily angrier at the injustices he saw himself as suffering. He tried to get another job at a different station in Philadelphia, but according to him, his former employer convinced them to withdraw the offer. Flanagan claimed it was the last straw and faxed a manifesto to ABC News, detailing his rage towards the massacre. He then went after former colleagues Allison Parker and Adam Ward, who were live on air filming a segment for WBDJ. After approaching them at point-blank range and even waiting several seconds unnoticed, Flanagan ruthlessly shot Parker and Ward as they were distracted by their interview. Their murders were not only aired on the local station as they happened, Flanagan filmed them himself, then uploaded the footage to Facebook. He even went so far as to direct his Twitter followers to the grisly video. Parker and Ward were pronounced dead at the scene, and Flanagan took it. Hours later, after being cornered by authorities on a highway 200 miles away. Deirdre Hunt, Konstantinos Fotopoulos, and the Hunter Killer Club. When Deirdre Hunt met Konstantinos Fotopoulos, she was 20 years old and working at his pool hall in Daytona Beach. Fotopoulos had decided he was tired of his marriage to his wife Lisa, a successful business owner, but divorce meant he would lose out on her money. So instead, he started having an affair with Hunt. Together, they came up with a plot to not only get rid of Lisa, but also another staff member of the pool hall who found out Fotopoulos was running counterfeit schemes. Kevin Ramsey had been dropping hints that he was going to blackmail Fotopoulos. So together, he and Hunt lured him into the woods with the promise of joining the ultra-secret Hunter Killer Club. Ramsey was told that it was an initiation and she would only be shooting at his feet. But as Fotopoulos ran the camera, she shot him multiple times, the final bullet entering his head when she grabbed him by the hair and pulled the trigger. Hunt claims that Fotopoulos had threatened her life and family, and the video was to be used against her so she would have no choice but to help him find someone to murder his wife too. She said her lover held the camera in one hand and a gun in the other, but the video evidence showed that there was no way this was possible. He was holding the camera and a source of light. It didn't help her case that Hunt also showed off her bloodstained shoes and bragged to an ex-boyfriend. Do you know what it feels like to grab someone by the hair and blow their... It feels... While the plot against Fotopoulos' wife ultimately failed, another person lost their life in the sinister scheme. Brian Chase was hired to murder Lisa, but only caused her minor brain damage. And Fotopoulos shot him immediately after, killing him instantly. This murder was not recorded for posterity. Hunt was sentenced to life in prison, while Fotopoulos was given the death penalty. Anthony Rees and the Secret Phone. Anthony Rees, 40, was home alone when his unlikely pair of friends, David Bloomer and Anthony Fitzgerald, stopped by for a visit. Bloomer, 18, and Fitzgerald, 22, were on good terms with Rees until some choice words were exchanged about Fitzgerald's girlfriend. Apparently, this was enough for a friendship to turn sour. Sour enough to end up in murder. Though the 22-year-old claims Rees threw the first punch, the autopsy revealed it was clearly a one-sided fight. Rees' jaw was broken in 3 places. There was bleeding in his lungs, and his skull was bashed against the floor repeatedly. After the brutal homicide, multiple photos were taken with a cell phone and later transferred to another mobile device. But the pictures weren't enough for Fitzgerald. He went on to brag to the very girlfriend who'd been insulted, the supposed reason for the attack. He told Tara Cole how he'd gashed his head, broke both his jaws, then went on to show Tara's mother, Sharon Cole, the photos on his phone. Fitzgerald even bragged about his injured knuckles and took pictures of those two as a fond memory. The photos of his crime apparently showed a scene so gruesome that Rees was described by his own murderer as something from a horror movie. Fitzgerald was sentenced to life in prison with a possibility of parole in 2022. Alan Yerke in the file called My Sins. The body of Deirdre Melichowski was found in the mountains of El Paso, Texas, with little to no information on what had happened to her. Looking for clues, detectives sought out Donna and Alan Yerke, some of Melichowski's oldest friends. They pointed fingers at her fiancé, saying that she had a relationship with him and he should be investigated. When Melichowski's fiancé hired a lawyer and kept his mouth shut, her case went cold. Until another body was found in the mountains 9 months later. While Melichowski had been 24 years old, this victim was only 12. Danielle Bonfield had been reported missing the morning her body was discovered. This scene was also pretty scarce on clues. However, the night Bonfield went missing, she had sent a page to none other than Alan Yerke. This set police on his trail, revealing a prior conviction of assault. As suspicion mounted on Yerke, his vehicle was searched, revealing a truckload of digital media storage. Engineer John San Agustin was tasked with searching 50 CD-ROMs and 400 to 500 floppy disks for evidence. On one disk, there was a password-protected file called My Sins. After countless tries to crack the code, San Agustin used software to discover the password God Help. In the document My Sins, Yerke outlined the vicious crimes he'd committed, and even the crimes he wanted to commit in the future. These included the murder of the 12-year-old girl found in the mountains, as well as his wife's best friend. With his own words outing him as a monster in black and white, he pleaded guilty to the murders of Melichowski and Bonfield. Yerke was sentenced to life, plus 50 years, without the possibility of parole. Maury Travis and the horrifying home movies. In 2001 and 2002, a string of horrific murders went unsolved in Missouri and Illinois, all radiating near the city of St. Louis. The victims were thought to be high risk and not given priority by the police, which just resulted in more that went unchecked until hotel waiter Maury Travis was investigated. Oddly enough, Travis himself was the one who put the authorities on his trail by sending a note to a reporter at the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. This note taunted the reporter, included a printed map showing the location of the body of one of his victims, and promised to reveal more if it was published in a Sunday edition. After tracking the IP address of the origin of the printed map, Travis was arrested and his home was searched for evidence. But police found even more than they had bargained for. A secret chamber, bondage equipment, a stun gun, and other various methods of torture. Worst of all was a videotape labeled Your Wedding Day. The tape showed Travis tying up his female victims, playing bizarre games, and assaulting them. The got worse and worse until the murderer who told on himself strangled a woman to death on film. The footage was so grisly and disturbing that the officers that saw them had to undergo psychological counseling. It's not clear why Travis wanted to draw attention to himself for these crimes, because only days after his arrest, he in his cell in the St. Louis County Jail. What do you think? Did these killers secretly want to be caught? Or was the idea of documenting their twisted crimes too exciting to pass up? Let us know in the comments.